Hello, my friends, it's Danny, and today we are outside of the kitchen and we're going to chat about how to simplify healthy eating. There is so much information out in the world about how we should be eating that it does become very easy to feel confused or overwhelmed or discouraged about what we should and what we should not be eating. And I find that oftentimes the nutritional experts that you may turn to for advice, they become very focused on optimal nutrition or on the very little nuances about food and nutrition. And I know for myself, this can actually create more confusion and less clarity. I have found it to be way more helpful to step back and take a bigger, broader view of nutrition and healthy eating as a way to simplify my approach to food and feeling good on a day-to-day basis. I am always looking for ways to simplify, whether that is simplify how I cook, simplify how I go about my days, or simplify how I think about and approach my food. So today I want to break down 3 key components that have really helped me to simplify the way I approach my healthy eating goals, with the intention of also making it more clear and more simple for you. So first things first, without attaching to any type of food morality or giving your food any labels such as good and bad, a really simple practice is to simply begin by focusing on real, whole, unprocessed foods as close to their natural state as possible most of the time. Right? So eating a variety of foods like fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, high quality protein sources, healthy fats like avocados and nuts, and then good, smart, natural carbohydrates like sweet potatoes and whole grains. This really eliminates the need to get overly logical about food, and it makes it very easy to determine whether or not you're making a healthy choice just relying on this very simple baseline. Now, there are definitely other nutritional factors that you want to consider when it comes to eating well, but not at the expense of this broader baseline. Meaning, if you are currently eating a lot of highly processed foods, a lot of low quality foods, a lot of foods that don't have life and vitality and energy in them, before you start to try to focus on a lot of the small nuances in nutrition or focus on supplementation, just reel things back and practice getting on the playing field of focusing on these types of foods. And the fun part is that this is really a game of addition. Instead of thinking about the foods you need to eliminate, I want you focusing on all of the types of foods that you can either add in or level up. So how can you add in more real, whole, fresh foods or level up your current options? An example of this might be recreating your favorite fast food meal at home, or if that's one step too many, figuring out how to add some fresh whole foods to whatever that favorite food item is. So let me give you an example. Let's say you just love a fast food burger. You can either plan to make that burger at home, which is a fairly simple cooking endeavor, or you can plan to pack some fresh veggies on the side or order a side salad instead of French fries the next time you're going out to get that burger. Now, these might seem like very simple, very basic tips, but it's these little tiny shifts done consistently over a period of time that can really shift your eating habits. So that's a loose example, but you get the general idea here. Taking the time to prioritize real, whole, unprocessed foods as close to their natural state as possible most of the time as the base of your diet before you start playing with like the details of nuanced nutrition. Just let it be easy. Now, with that being said, the second thing that we have to consider and that we really can't overlook is that calories do matter. If you want to maintain a healthy, balanced body weight, you have to find a way to create an energetic balance with the energy that you take in versus the energy you put out. I mean, even if we step away from food for a minute and just look at life, right? This balance exists anywhere you look. If you want to have a healthy relationship, you have to put into that relationship what you're taking out of that relationship. If you want to have a healthy bank account, you have to balance what goes in and what comes out. Anytime there's too much give or too much get, you're going to fall out of balance. So whether you're somebody who likes to pay attention to caloric intake or does not like to pay attention to caloric intake, we have to acknowledge the fact that creating a caloric balance of energy expenditure and intake does matter. And here's the interesting thing about the science of calories is that it doesn't really matter the type of foods that you are eating so long as you maintain that balance. Meaning you could eat donuts all day long, and if you maintain the balance of this energy exchange, you can still maintain a healthy body weight. This is why it's important not to get like high and mighty about your food choices and not to get super attached to labeling foods as good and bad. You do not have to eat 100% clean all of the time to have a healthy diet. Sometimes you're going to want to eat a food that is less nutritious simply because it's delicious, or because you grew up eating it, or because you're in a social situation and it makes you feel more connected to the people around you, right? There's so many different reasons that we want to eat all of the foods, and recognizing that you can include these foods in a healthy diet so long as you do it in a balanced way can be a very powerful realization. So you don't have to have the perfect diet to have a healthy diet. I would go so far as to argue that for most of us, we have to find a way to balance those nutritious fuel foods with those fun foods if we want to find a path to making healthy eating feel enjoyable and sustainable. Now, with that being said, while you can maintain a healthy caloric balance eating donuts all day, it is very difficult to do. It's much easier to stay within a healthy caloric range when you are focusing on real whole foods as close to their natural state as possible most of the time. And that's simply because you're going to get more variety this way. You're going to get more nutrients, more vitamins, more minerals, more protein, more healthy fats, more fiber, etc. And when you are doing that, you tend to be more satisfied and more satiated, which makes it a lot easier to maintain that energy balance. And this is something that you can and should experiment with yourself, right? Drop the food labels, forget about what's good and bad, and notice, how do you feel? What works for you, right? Take a few days and plan a breakfast where you go out and you get a latte and a pastry and see how you feel. Not just how you feel about how the food tastes, but how you physically feel. Does it keep you satisfied? Are you satiated? How quickly are you hungry after? Are you energized, etc.? And then do the same thing maybe with some scrambled eggs and sauteed vegetables and whole grain toast, and ask yourself the same questions. It's a really fun practice and a really great exploration because it takes you out of your mind about what you should and shouldn't do, and it drops you into your body where you can really start to notice, hey, does this work for me? So just to step back for a minute, the way we are simplifying healthy eating is step one, we are focusing on getting onto the playing field of eating real, whole, unprocessed foods as close to their natural state as possible most of the time as the base of our diet. And then number two, we are considering how we can create a healthy balance of caloric intake, right? How can we create a healthy energy exchange with food, what we take in versus what we take out. Now, a lot of people would put caloric balance first, but I just find that it is so much easier to maintain that balance when I focus on real whole foods, and that is why I like to teach it with the food quality first. The third component that I think is helpful to take a look at after you're on the playing field of focusing on real whole foods and you're practicing how to do that in a way that creates a healthy caloric balance for yourself is to consider the balance of macronutrients, meaning the balance of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats that you have on your plate with each meal or throughout the day. Now, you may often hear people arguing over which macronutrient breakdown is best, right? Vegans and vegetarians tend to have a little bit of a higher carbohydrate diet with more moderate protein and fats. If you're someone who takes a keto or a low carb approach to food, you may have a higher fat balance with moderate protein and extremely low carbohydrates. People who are very fitness oriented tend to focus on higher protein followed by moderate carbs and lower fat intakes, right? The question here isn't which one is superior. The question is really what works best for you, because what you will notice about all of those approaches is that at their baseline, they're still all focusing on real whole foods most of the time. And they are doing this in a balanced way, meaning they are finding a balanced energy exchange and staying within a healthy caloric range. What you don't see or what doesn't work is having a diet that's high fat and high carbohydrate, or a diet that's high protein and high fat, right? Because at the end of the day, that would just create too much food. So the key is to play with the shifts in the balance of these macronutrients to see what makes you feel the best, what allows you to eat foods that you enjoy the most, and ultimately what gives you the most energy and vitality. So all of this to say, before you drive yourself crazy and get really nitty-gritty with your approach to eating well, right? Before you dive into extreme dietary practices or buying a bunch of unnecessary supplements, try to step back and look at your nutritional approach, your healthy eating habits through a broader lens. Ask yourself, have I mastered these 3 core nutritional concepts, right? Am I focusing on real whole foods? Have I found a way to stay within a healthy caloric range in a way that is livable and doable for me? And have I noticed that any specific macronutrient balance helps me really thrive and feel my best? So yes, is there a lot more that one could talk about when it comes to nutrition? Absolutely. It's just that I have found in my own journey with eating well that most of it is completely insignificant if you haven't nailed these 3 broader basics. And keep in mind that applying these healthy eating basics to your life often has absolutely nothing to do with the food, right? In order to build healthy eating habits, we have to build a healthy lifestyle. And that means the ability to do things like having boundaries, forgiving ourselves, having a healthy mindset, having the ability to allow and process emotions. Food and our relationship to it, it's layered, which means we have to cultivate a kind and compassionate and curious relationship with ourselves if we want to create a healthy relationship with food. Now, for those of you who are working on your relationship with food and body and or weight, I do have a separate YouTube channel. It's called Dani Spies. We have a handful of videos there right now, and we will be adding more beginning in May. So if that's something you want to take a deeper dive into, make sure you check that channel out and subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. And in the meantime, I would love to hear your thoughts on healthy eating. What has helped you? What has not helped you? What are your thoughts on what I've shared in this video here? I would love if you would come down to the comments so we could start a conversation, because I find that there's no better way to learn than to do it with like-minded people who are open to sharing their stories. So I will meet you down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers!